Well, this is an interesting one, folks. I got an email earlier this week about a sheep on the loose. This is a domestic sheep on the loose along the Front Range down in the Waterton Park area. And there's actually genuine concern about the potential of what this domesticated sheep can do to help fill in the blanks and walk us through this scenario. Real pleasure to welcome Richard Mellon. He is a director with the Wild Sheep Foundation of Alberta. Richard, thanks so much for taking some time.
Oh, pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Let's start it off with how did your organization get alerted to this escaped sheep?
Well, it's one of those crazy situations where we ended up with the sheep. The picture we have of it anyway showed up on a trail cam from the Nature Conservancy Canada, and it was a trail cam that they have on one of their trails leaving their property. Okay, and their property butts right up against Waterton. So as it leaves their property, it goes into Waterton, and there's no, I can't get an official date on when the picture was taken or when that sheep was actually there. It was sometime since the 1st of July. So that's kind of a big wide window we've got there. We of course they didn't know what they're looking at. I guess I don't know, but one of their members is also a life member, or life member, I believe, of Wild Sheep, and he's seen it right away, knew what was going on. I mean, we just had the big scare with MOV here in Alberta, and so now that it's on the loose, we're on the hunt.
So, and not to make light of this, but this one sheep, if it does have, and there's no indication, at least none that I've heard of, that it is diseased, but it could do some serious damage into the wild sheep and goat populations.
Absolutely. I mean, people don't understand the severity of what MOV it does to a population. The very first infection we had in Alberta was 1937. So we've known how to prevent this since 1937. It got into the southwest Alberta herd, and which is, Waterton's part of that southwest herd. The herd went from 8,500 down to 2,550 over the next few years. It has a death rate of 40 to 75%. And the worst part about it is that if they survive it, they're not immune, they're just a carrier. So as a carrier, our only options right now is that you have to go in and anything that survives is you test them. And if they're positive, you kill them. Because mostly it's the females that survive, and the ewe that survives then just passes the disease on to her lamb and onto other lambs. When, one sign that you've probably got a typhoid Mary of a ewe in a herd is a very high lamb mortality. There are lots of lambs dying everywhere. So it's not one of these things that we can develop a vaccine for. We're looking at some various medical research and that kind of stuff. But right now, all we have to do is we have to keep wild sheep from coming in contact with domestic sheep. Now, MOV in domestic sheep is this, and this is the part that's so nefarious, is that most people have no idea that their animals have MOV, because it exhibits in domestic sheep as a cold, like a common cold would for a mild cold would for a human, and so they don't think nothing of it. The animal has a runny nose, maybe it coughs a little bit, and then it's over it. The domestic sheep have lived with this disease for centuries, and they've evolved with it. Our wild sheep haven't. And like I said, our very first encounter with it was in 1937. That's very, very recent when you're talking in biological times. And so we have to keep them separated. And the fellow who lost this four-horned sheep, doesn't know whether it is positive or not, and would have no way of knowing unless he tested it. And unfortunately, testing right now, the test costs probably more than the animal. And these are all things that we've been considered. I mean, we had another scare this year uh, down in the sheep sanctuary, and where a band of rams wandered down the sheep river, and right on the bank of the river, as soon as they crossed onto private property, there was domestic sheep. We haven't got specific proof yet, because this stuff is all genetically linked. Like they through the genetics of the disease, they can take it right back to the animal that it came from. But anyway, it hasn't been proof positive yet that that's where it came from. But this band of rams ended up, I think 14 or 15 of them died of the disease. We had to kill the rest, and just because once they've got it, we can't allow them the chance to move. Young rams are especially bad for them to be infected, because they go on what's called a foray, and that just off wandering out through the hood and visiting everybody. Well, just 9 kilometers away from this band of infected rams was a herd of ewes lambing, getting ready to lamb, and so that would have been just disastrous.
So
I
let
mean,
me let me ask you, is it a virus? How is it transmitted? That
it's
kind of thing.
bacterial. It's bacterial. Okay, so it's not a virus. There's no vaccine. It's bacterial, and bacterial infections are some of the hardest to combat. And in this case, there's no developing an immunity. There's no vaccine for it. We've got to attack it from other ways. One of the challenges that we'll have to overcome with science. The other fact, though, is that it is 100% preventable, because it comes from domestic sheep. We just have to stop them from getting in contact. As part of Wild Sheep Foundation, we have done things like we've offered to test animals with the proviso that if the animal tests positive, then it gets killed, removed from the herd. This is done in the Yukon. It's called the Yukon Protocol, and they test the herds. The herds have to be certified in order to be anywhere near where they might come in contact with wild sheep. The other thing you talk about are doing double fencing. So you got one fence that's holding the domestic sheep in, and then you have another fence but it's got to be at least 30 or 40 feet away. Okay. And as you can imagine, that is not cheap.
Yeah.
That's not cheap. But I mean, those are the things we've looked at as well. But the biggest problem that we have is that we have already banned domestic goats and domestic sheep from being in any of the public lands. Okay, so there are companies that have goats that eat weeds, and they take them to ski hills and that kind of stuff. If that's on public land, they can't be there anymore. Not in relationship to the sheep zones, right? The sheep management areas. So what we're looking for is to get a big wide 50 or 60 or 70 kilometer exclusion zone, and we can do it right up to where we hit private land. Okay. And then private land, we don't have the rights to prohibit them from having sheep. We don't, and we haven't got any movement from agriculture yet. Agriculture has been the biggest downfall here, is they do not want to, move on restricting landowners' rights. We've done a study. We sunk $30,000 or something into it. We did a study, and we looked at the sheep management area and the private land that abut to it, and we did check to see how many tame sheep there were, how many domestic sheep there were. There's between 2,200 and 2,500 sheep in there at any given time. None of them are commercial ventures. They are just, half the sheep have a bow in their hair. They're somebody's pet. You know what I mean? And which is difficult, but we've looked at testing them and purchasing the herd if they need to be removed, and trying to put some sort of a legal document on the land where they could buy more sheep and put in there, or which is really hard, getting that to transfer forward to the next buyer and that sort of thing.
So let me just jump in, Richard. So you've got this sheep on the loose. What is it that you want, I guess, members of the public, members of your own organization to be doing right now?
We want them to locate it. and get some GPS coordinates on it. Contact Fish and Wildlife. We have on our wanted poster. We have the contact information for the people. We This is not something where we can take any active measures in. We can't go shoot it. We can't go kill it. We can't, do the Ralph Klein, the shoot shovel and shut up thing. We want to be very clear that we're doing this by the book. For the first time in quite a while, we've got a cooperative government of Alberta, and that's important. So we want to do this right. There are people complaining that it's been on the loose for so long and complaining about Fish and Wildlife sitting on the thumb. Well, that's not true. It is either on private land or it's in a national park. It's very tough for Fish and Wildlife to operate under those situations. They have to get so much approval, and how long it takes to get approval from governments.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess yeah, that's the tougher nut is that this animal is crossing into multiple jurisdictions, I guess. When you look at this, and given the fact that this animal's been on the loose potentially for quite some time, are you at all, do you hold any hope out that maybe a predator has maybe already jumped it, whether it be a grizzly, a cougar, or some other animal that may have dispatched it by now?
Well, if we never find it, we won't know for a fact. The fact that has made it this long, it's kind of odds are in its favor. They're survivors. Goats are just pardon me. Goats and sheep are just huge survivors, and it's been doing very well. So it's terrible where it's at because it's not getting a lot of interaction there. It's sitting right there, crossing in and out of the Waterton border, and it wouldn't run into a lot of the fact that it's on Nature Conservancy land, and that it's not going to run into a lot of other humans unless people are out hiking, that sort of thing. But if we can get some GPS numbers on it, get some recent spotting of it, that's what we need. We're looking at spending some money. Wild Sheep Foundation Alberta hire a helicopter. We have an outfitter, a friend and member, Landon Collins, and Mrs. Simpson. I forget your first name. I'm sorry. They have a helicopter, and they're donating like half the cost of it to go out, and so we figure we'll go to the last place that we know of. It was, and then we spend 3-4 hours and see what we can find. It would be a big help to get a handle on where this animal is.
Given that we are into the summer months, where are the sheep and goats right now in terms of their elevation? Do you think that there is a chance that this domestic animal has bumped into them?
Absolutely. Have you ever been to Waterton? Have you ever
Oh
been
yeah,
to the town of Waterton?
yeah.
How many sheep do you see laying on
Uh,
people's front lawns?
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and it's all about education. People don't understand that they're even breaking the law. They don't understand the severity of what's going on. The only way we can guarantee whether we have a problem here or not is we have to get a hold of that sheep, that 4-horn sheep, and we have to test it.
All right. Thank you again.